Wicked Witches. I'm going to talk about mental health today. It's Mental Health Week, and I was on a Zoom call with some E15 drama students earlier in the week, and one of the questions that my darling mentor, Andrea Brooks, asked me was, you seem very full of life and, energy, and how do you get across that this isn't how it always is? And how do you get yourself out of bed when you're in a dark place and when times are dark? And so I just wanted to talk a bit about that, because I know that social media can be really difficult to look at when you're not in a good place, and that when people look like they're having a really good time, you're only ever seeing part of the story. First of all, they're not getting up and doing the videos when they're in a bad place. Also, when someone's in a good place, that's where they're at for that moment in time, but that's not been forever. So there's the saying, this too shall pass. And at any point, we are in, sometimes we're ahead, sometimes we're behind, the race is long, and in the end it is only with yourself, as the great Sunscreen song says. And also, comparison is the thief of joy, which is a known saying, but my mentor Andrea says it quite regularly. Yeah, there's no point comparing yourself, for a start. Know that absolutely everyone has a cross to bear. Absolutely everyone. And whatever you think about them and how they're doing and what they're doing is completely your projection. You're making it up, and you're going to come off worse than that person, because the fantasy you're making up of that person is always going to be better than the reality. And you know what your reality is because you're having to live it. So you're living with a reality and fantasizing about how someone else is and how they're doing. So you're never going to win in that situation. So there is literally no point comparing yourself. The good times and bad times, they were the best of times, they were the worst of times. So the worst of times for me was 7 years ago, where I was in depression for 7 years. I had full-blown depression for 7 years, and I thought about killing myself every single day. I planned how I was going to do it. I wrote my suicide note in my head all day long, every day. It was like my favourite thing to do. And the thing that kept me going was knowing that there were people that loved me, and that I didn't want to do that to them. There are people who love you wherever you're at, no matter how depressed you feel. There are people that utterly love you, and it is the most soul-destroying thing when your friend kills himself. I've had several friends kill themselves. I'm sure, I think most of us have. And the people left behind just feel so utterly useless and helpless. Everyone wishes that you'd called them. Everyone wishes that you'd been in touch. I also know that when you're in the thick of it and you're in that place, you just feel completely hopeless. I know how that feels. I just felt like I'd absolutely failed, and I'd listen to people on the radio going, people who were successful on the radio being interviewed, and they were like, oh yeah, I always knew. I was like, fuck, I always knew I was going to do something. I thought I was going to do something, and I haven't. I've completely fucking failed. And there was a moment when I had to either kill myself or choose to live. And the moment was when my husband and I found out that the third and final round of IVF that we were doing hadn't worked. We knew that we didn't have the money to pay for it. So these were it's 2 rounds on the NHS, but actually we, in our area in Brighton, but we ended up getting 3 rounds because one of them went wrong, and I overstimulated and OD'd on estrogen, which sent me completely mad. I completely went mental. I had a breakdown. ODing on estrogen is not fun. It's like all your PMTs come at once. It was horrific, and I've had horrible PMT and periods since then as well. So that's shit. Completely messed my body up. Put on loads of weight, which I've only just shed. And at the end of it all, we didn't have children. My future of what I thought my life was going to be had not happened. I'd failed at everything. I'd failed in my career. I'd failed to become a mother. I had nothing left. I had no plans left. I was absolutely without any juice left. I was dead. We were working in a call center. Like I just felt shit. And then I made the choice of not killing myself and chose to let the universe lead. I was like, okay, if I'm not going to die, if I'm not going to do that, then I'm yours. And I literally even said it out loud. I was just like, I'm yours. I don't know. You do what you want with me. I'm yours now. And it's like the fool in the tarot steps off the cliff into the unknown. So I stepped off the cliff and I fell. I let myself fall. Sometimes when you fall, you fly. And I flew. And I ended up in the next 7 years, the most recent 7 years, doing all the things I ever dreamed of doing, like working in the theatre, making art, being a creative person, having books published, like doing creative things. And none of it looked how I imagined it would look. None of it has been successful in the way that I imagined it would be successful. None of it has been received or celebrated or looks in any way like what I imagined it would. But every step of the way, I've completely let the universe lead it and trusted the universe and have just followed my joy, followed my bliss. If I enjoy doing it, then I do it. Like now with the lockdown, instead of fretting about not like being able to function as a self-employed theatre maker, producer, which is where my money comes from. That's where I've actually carved out a living over the last 7 years. I just thought, fuck it. I really love doing witchcraft. I love doing magic. I love making little videos. I love doing all these things that you've seen me doing. So I'm going to just spend my time and energy doing that. And that's what's kept me sane over the last 2 months. And it's meant that I've learned a whole load of skills and have kind of shifted my career, possibly being a bit more into this direction, which is what I'd rather be doing anyway. I really enjoyed doing everything I was doing before, but while that's all put on hold, I'm going to do this. And all of it has just been following what the universe is doing. I didn't know that this was going to happen. But as it has happened, you know, if life gives you lemons, make a gin and tonic, you know. And I know that's easier said than done. And when you're in the eye of the storm, when you're in the depression, when you're in the thick of it, like, none of this will help. You're just in that space. But do know that it will pass. 7 years I was in the shit. I was 7 years in depression, and it never felt like it was going to end. And every day felt like 1,000 years. But it did pass. And that time has ended up being one of the most creatively inspiring points of my life. It's ended up being so much juice for stuff that I went on to do. In fact, the juice of that time has only just come to an end. And I was worried because we're now at the end of another 7-year cycle. And for me, my life seems to be quite governed by 7-year chapters. I'm Capricorn, and that's ruled by Saturn. Saturn has the 28-year cycle, so each 7 years is kind of a thing for certain planets that are ruled by, I mean, for any star sign ruled by Saturn, you'll get affected by the 7 years as well. And so my book series, Saturn Returns, is where I write a book every 7 years, which, you know, is also like when all your cells are meant to have been replenished, and so you're kind of a new person. There's the 7 stages to the Fool, the 7-year itch. So like 7 just sort of comes up as a period in time, and the 7 Up TV series kind of what I sort of based it on. So yeah, I'm writing a book every 7 years, and this year happens to be the year that I'm writing one now, like now at 42. I'm 42 this year, which is crazy that this has all happened for this year while I'm writing. So, I mean, that's amazing in itself. But yeah, I've just like had to go with the flow with whatever's happening. I thought that because I was coming to the end of a 7-year cycle that I was about to have a horrible time, that things were going to go, I don't know, like, but it's never as easy or as simple as 7 years bad, 7 years good, 7 years bad. That's not the way it works. What I've realised as I'm coming up to the end of this 7-year chapter and the start of my next one is the rocket pack fuel from that 7 years of horror has just run out. And that's not a bad thing, because what it was kind of, I needed to put it somewhere. All that creative energy that you would put into having children, I needed to put somewhere. And I put it into writing books, making plays, and doing things creatively, and I had loads of energy to do it. That energy's now run out, but what's left is a much calmer place. I feel much calmer now, and I feel like I'm now creating from a more solid foundation that's okay. And I know bad things are going to happen. Like at some point, I'm going to lose people that I love. You know, that's going to happen. I lost people that I love over this lockdown period. But when it does happen, that there is some foundation there that I can work from, and the universe isn't out to get me. So I just feel like I'm going to be working from a calmer place, and who knows what the next 7 years will hold. But it doesn't feel like it's about punching me in the face with a bunch of the next horrible stuff, but about being in a more grounded space where I don't have expectations and I don't have delusions and I don't have an agenda. You know, anything can happen. And that period in time that was difficult, it's like you're a tent, you're a canvas, and the pole is your life. And then the shape of your tent is the pegs. You know, like if you don't have those pegs hammering out, you've got no shape. And each peg makes you a different shape, and it's going to make you a bit wonky, and it hurts when it's being hammered in, but it's what gives you definition and shape. No one wants to be a floppy tent now, do they? No. Because you can't weather the storm. You need a good old strong rigid tent with loads of pegs for you to be able to weather the storm. So know that it's at some point it will all make sense at some point, and that this too shall pass. I hope that's of help.